Welcome to today's episode of Basic Automotive Skills. Today we're going to learn how to use a straight edge and a set of feeler gauges to figure out how flat a surface is. For this demonstration, I'm going to use an air-cooled engine block from a 1999 Briggs & Stratton 5 horsepower engine. This engine came out of a power washer and, as you can tell, has never been opened before. So I'm really curious to see whether or not this engine block has remained flat. What I like to do first is figure out a couple of locations where I can lay the straight edge flat so I can take some good measurements. It is imperative that the surface is as clean as possible before you take these measurements. You'll be taking these measurements with these. These are called feeler gauges. This particular set of feeler gauges are in thousandths of an inch. As you can tell, each gauge is precisely cut to that exact thickness. Let's take a measurement. It's very important to lay the feeler gauge on the surface before using the straight edge. I started off with 2/1000ths of an inch, and now I place the straight edge right on top of the feeler gauge. Then pull the feeler gauge out from under the straight edge. Notice how the straight edge tries to move with the feeler gauge. This is an indication that the feeler gauge is too thick and I should reduce the thickness of the gauge. Just took another measurement confirming that the thickness is uniform. Now I feel confident enough to move on to the 1/1000th of an inch gauge. Now if you're wondering, is that it? Is it that easy? Yes. It's pretty simple. There's no need to be intimidated. Now we see here, I put the 1/1000th of an inch gauge on the block, put the straight edge over it, and now I pull it out. The reason feeler gauges are called feeler gauges is because you're supposed to feel the tension of the gauge as you pull it out from underneath the straight edge. See here, as I pull out the 1/1000th of an inch gauge, it comes out smoothly without much effort. However, there's still enough tension on the gauge, which lets me know that there is not a low spot at the location I'm taking the measurement. It's very important for me to state that this technique is good enough for us to use as mechanics. If you're a professional engine builder or a machinist, you're going to want to use more sophisticated technologies to get a better idea about the flatness of a surface. But if you're a mechanic in a repair shop or a dealership, this technique is good enough for us to know whether or not the surface we are trying to measure needs to be machined or replaced. In this case, the flatness seems to be within 1/1000th of an inch across the entire cylinder block. So I'm confident that I can just put another head gasket on it and send it on its way. That's all there is to it. I hope you learned something from this video, and if you were intimidated about using these tools before, I hope you are no longer intimidated by them. Now get out of here and go measure some surfaces.